Rebecca, good afternoon. Thank you for joining me. I was looking at visuals which we hope to bring for our viewers in the next few minutes or so from the European Space Agency that were just showing the concentration of nitrogen dioxide in China in December and comparing with where we are now. It's a dramatic picture and it's replicated even in Europe. So this could be a silver lining, isn't it?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I guess it is hard to talk about positives. We're in the middle of a pandemic, but the one aspect of all of these shifts in activities and in emissions, it might give us a chance to understand how these activities are impacting emissions. I think we should say that the European Weather Bureau, ECMWF, has come out with some warning that some of these analyses are premature to attribute them just to the lockdown. A lot of things change, right, year by year. But I think both NASA and the Europeans have done good analysis for both China as well as for Italy, and they have seen decreases, you're correct, in NO2 due to the shutdown and due to less air travel and vehicles and things like that.
All right, Rebecca, in fact, I think we can show our viewers that those dramatic visuals from the European Space Agency. So we'll show you just now. There you are. That's from the European Space Agency. That's the area around China. It compares from December to where we are in March. Look at how it goes from red, deep red, and starts getting blue. That's nitrogen dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, and it becomes more and more blue as time goes on. And you will see as the video goes that once, look at that, it's becoming blue. That's over a period of time. Very dramatic shift in the concentration levels. And you will see you'll see it then starting to become almost yellowish, slightly around March. And that's when now, of course, China is starting to pick up. That's where we are. It's starting to pick up again. So that's one of the greenhouse gases. And as I say, that's a picture that you also see in Europe as well, where they've compared, where the European Space Agency has compared concentration levels between March 2019 and March 2020. Can this be sustained, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think that we have a lot to learn, right, and see what we can do in order to keep some of these decreases. Obviously, I think countries can't be on total lockdown, but maybe if this shows the large impact that these emissions can have on air quality, it might provide some incentive. I do want to say, though, I don't know that we know yet what impact this would have in air quality in South Africa, and part of that is because, first off, our air pollution tends to get worse here in the high veld in the winter when we have colder temperatures, more stable weather condition, and more emissions. And also currently, if people start using more solid fuels for heating and for lighting, that could also increase pollution. So we're actually not certain what kind of changes we might see in South Africa.
Yeah, and I want to talk about post-lockdown. We're all, as a world, as a country, Rebecca, hoping that this lockdown will end soon. But because right now factories are closed at the moment, there's no aviation activity at the moment. Could there be a possible threat that even though we see the trend there kind of like, slowing down the emissions, not necessarily posing a risk, but post-lockdown we could see a drastic increase in these emissions, as well as an increase, of course, in more pollution, therefore affecting and impacting on climate change?
Yeah, I think that we definitely will see in the areas that have seen the decrease an increase again in emissions of both greenhouse gases and in air pollutants. As a scientist, my hope is that if we can see that this has had an impact, that we can quantify it to the government and say, these are areas, these are emission sources we very often can struggle to get a good handle, particularly vehicles, on how much they impact, how much they emit. It's really hard to know all of the cars, what they emit. So maybe this can help us to quantify that, to give more incentives to government to try to decrease these emissions here.
All right, Rebecca Garland from the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, that's the CSIR. She says the picture is not completely clear that you can attribute all of this to, the lockdowns that countries are implementing because of COVID-19, but it certainly presents an interesting picture and will enable them as scientists to gauge the impact of all the car movement that we have every other day and all the aviation activity.
Right.
As we were showing, those visuals are quite dramatic.